Thor and Loki in the morning! And we're back. So the critic consensus for Thor the Dark World on Rotten Tomatoes sounds something like, well, this isn't the best Marvel movie that ever came out of this franchise. It still does a lot of things well. I would argue that Thor the Dark World shows us why individual superhero movies are so important for the Marvel movie universe. The Marvel movie universe isn't just about the Avengers, or it's not just about team-up movies. You still need to have these stories that do not feel stale, do not make us bored, because, you know, the Marvel movie universe has been around for a pretty long time. And that's what Thor the Dark World does so well. It shows us this one-shot story of Thor and his entourage of characters doing something, saving the world. It's a very simple story. It's a combination of, you know, bad guy wants to destroy the universe versus damsel in distress. And because of this simple story and all the good shit that is built around it, we kind of feel like little kids when we're watching it, because it does manage to be its own movie, but it's still very obvious that it's kind of a combination of the first movie and the Avengers. This is clearly influenced by the Avengers. I think the tone and the attitude and the way that they set up the pacing and the way that they set up the action sequences is very influenced by the Avengers. So Alan Taylor, you know, he did something very well, because outside of that Avengers influence, you still have all the pieces coming together and everybody just being on the same wavelength. And when people say that this is better than the original, I think that is what they're responding to, because with the first Thor movie, I have a feeling that Kenneth Branagh was like, we're gonna make this Shakespearean by any means necessary. And the studio kind of pulling him back, you know, you still need to make it fun. That wasn't the problem with Thor the Dark World, where I feel that the director and the producer and the screenwriter and all the actors just came together to offer us a movie that is fun. It's very earnest in its desire to give us a good time, because this is basically a summer blockbuster, just happens to be released in November. What it also does very well is that it's this great blend of fantasy and science fiction. It shows us more of Asgard, it shows us more of the 9 realms, and even in something as simple as the fight sequences at the end, I don't think I've ever seen a fight in one of these movies that spans across dimensions, and like fucking space elves, man. In terms of character development, clearly Loki is a better developed character than Thor, who is a classic heroic figure. But with Loki, I really was worried that, given his popularity and given Tom Hiddleston's popularity, that this is going to turn basically into the Thor and Loki adventure hour. While you can't argue that that's what happens for like maybe like a third of the movie, it doesn't get so bad that it's obvious fan service. You still see the warrior free, you still see even Thor's mom kicking ass. Odin has a great speech towards the end that underlines how similar he actually is to Loki in mentality. And they do set up a great sequel for the Thor franchise that would rely heavily on Loki. I still feel that his presence in the movie is not enough to damage the overall story. Yes, a lot of people are going to like Loki even more after this, because he's so clever and he's so awesome and he's so hot, and, you know, Loki can do whatever he wants to do. Like, he can take over Asgard, he can take over Midgard, he can take over the 9 realms, he can suck in some ether, he can become one with the Convergence, he can kick Thanos' ass and rule the universe. In the end, he's still Hulk's bitch. And I see also that Thor the Dark World is compared with Man of Steel. And if you don't have a problem with London getting trashed, but you did have a problem with Metropolis getting destroyed in Man of Steel, then you are just a tiny bit hypocritical. I think that this movie has its own personality, it has its own visual style, and I really like that. I even like the soundtrack. The story, like I said, is very simple, but that's part of Thor the Dark World's charm. It does get to a point where I thought it was pretty convenient that all they needed to do to defeat the bad guy was drop a big space handle on him. And you also have characters like Darcy that take up way too much screen time, because honestly, Darcy pisses me off. It may be something that is very subjective, but that's the truth, because you have these characters and all of them can be funny. Like, if you write funny lines for them that are in character, they can all be funny. Ergo, it makes no sense to have a character in this movie that serves no other function other than being funny. The end of the world is going on with people dying and bad juju flying to dimensions and stop everything, Darcy needs to make out with somebody. It just pisses me off. Also, I'm sad to announce that we only had one shirtless scene in this movie, and it's so gratuitous. Like, look, I like shirtless scenes as much as the next girl who watches these kind of movies, but at least make it have a point. Like, don't, it's Thor standing around without a shirt for no good reason. Like, you know, when Steve Rogers turned into Captain America, like, I understood. Okay, he needs to be shirtless for that shit. And when Thor changed in the first Thor movie, okay, like, he's changing. He's gonna be shirtless, and they need to underline the attraction that Jane Foster feels towards him. But in this movie, there's no fucking reason for Thor to be shirtless in that scene. None. Never mind that his sleeves kept coming and going. So really, like, rather than have a scene like that that's completely gratuitous, just don't have it at all, okay? Like, I'm not a freaking animal. You don't need to tease me with this shit. Like, either make it part of the story, make the shirtlessness have some soul, or don't put it in there at all. Am I asking for that much, people? Pew, 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 pew.